Today I'm looking at Chants of Sennaar, a language-based puzzle game developed by Rundisk out of France and published in September 2023. It's based around several invented languages. We'll be learning unfamiliar symbols and, eventually, translating between the languages. The player awakens at the base of a Tower of Babel styled structure and must ascend the 5 rungs. Each rung is peopled by a different caste, with their own unknown language. You start without understanding anything, and must interact with environments and observe the context of symbols to unlock their meaning. Luckily enough, the game only concerns itself with literal translations and basic grammar, without any more complex linguistic nuances like idioms or connotations to worry about. As it's a knowledge-based game, some of my footage may be a bit spoilery. I'm trying to avoid any specific puzzle solutions in the front half, but the back 50 will contain those spoilers. There's my warning. Let's get into the graphics. This game's graphics are already timeless. It's all stylization all the way. Backgrounds have a mix of bright pastels with an almost colored paper texturing. And the only actual complaint I have is the one level where the water inexplicably looks like piss. Other than that, though, it's one of the more aesthetically pleasant games I've played in quite a while. And a large part of this comes from the designers choosing a stark simplicity for the levels and designs. Sometimes less is more, and the minimalism really succeeds here. Likewise, the soundtrack is serene and meditative, and suits the mood of the game. The skeleton of the soundscape is the diegetic noises, though, from the pleasing clackiness of the footsteps to the soft chirping of birds and rustling of plants. I'm guessing the developers didn't have the interest or resources to develop the verbal component of these languages, so instead we get a mix of Simlish and grunting. The core gameplay loop is to explore, discover new symbols, loosely guess at their meanings based on the context of your discoveries, and eventually resolve the meanings of the words through a matching symbol game. As you expand your lexicon, you'll understand more dialogue with characters, allowing you to deduce more and more symbols. There's a good variety of sub-puzzles as we progress. Low-stakes stealth sections with very frequent checkpoints, one Rush Hour style moving block puzzle, and almost every level ends with a door that requires some specific item hunt or understanding of a sequence of symbols. Here's my official spoiler and solution warning before I get into the specifics. There are 5 languages to discover, and each language has strict design standards that make them clearly read as related, which is some really exceptional design work. They won't immediately be obvious, but as you fully reveal the vocabulary, there are design elements that will jump out at you. The Bard language keeps a low swoop on all the symbols that relate to a human, or the Disciples language has a left bracket to signify that a symbol represents an object. The languages tend to have enough of these design rules that you can sometimes deduce symbols just by the similarities in related symbols. Each language also features unique grammatical rules. For example, the artist caste always places the object of a sentence at the start of their speech, or the warriors have a symbol that pluralizes the symbol after it, whereas the devotees pluralize symbols by doubling them up. The languages also have specific focuses that are appropriate for the caste that uses it. The scientists have an entire mathematical system that needs to be figured out. It's all terrific, and even though we are only figuring out specific slices of each caste's vocabulary, it succeeds at feeling like they are each a living, organically evolved language. As for the narrative, it becomes clear pretty quickly that the castes are actively hostile towards each other. The warriors hate the devotees and idolize the bards hate the warriors and use the devotees as slaves. The scientists only care about their experiments, and at the top of the tower are the anchorites. These are gamers, a chair-bound people plugged into a VR Second Life, as Mountain Dew game fuel is injected straight into their bloodstreams. The gamers don't care about anything but their KD, and the world has fallen to ruin around them. They are actively in thrall of a malicious AI known as the Exile. It's revealed that the gamers are the original creators of the tower, and everyone else, all of the casts, came to populate the tower, but refused to communicate with each other. A frustration at the lack of communication is what initially led the gamers to invent their AI and send themselves into exile. The majority of the game consists of ascending the tower and solving puzzles to fill out your vocabularies, but once you reach the gamers, the script flips. You discover that you're playing a robot designed by the last true gamer, specifically to unite the tower and end the gamer's exile. From here, you travel back to a series of odd terminals you've encountered throughout the game. They double as fast travel points and AIM chat rooms where members of different casts can interact. This was probably my favorite part of the game, although it was also incredibly frustrating. You briefly serve as a translator between the casts, so on the fly, you'll have to juggle between those grammatical differences I mentioned earlier, remembering how the different languages ask questions, organize their sentences, pluralize words, make negative statements, and then converting those text strands into another language's grammar. It's very rewarding when you get it right. By serving as an interpreter, you can unite the casts, free the bard's slaves, connect the warriors and devotees, and ultimately sneak into the hidden server farms where the Exile AI is housed and disable it. This builds to our final confrontation with the Exile, and our entrapment within its systems. It traps us in a surreal, pre-order version of the tower, where objects clip through the ground and the familiar becomes abstract. We triumph over the Exile, eventually, and free the gamers from their gold farming setups. They seem oddly happy to have their Xbox taken away. We ascend to the top of the tower, having finally united everyone. They chat amongst themselves, and then we see the symbol that the devotees associate with God. And we see it rotate, forming symbols in the other languages. Symbols they associate with the main goals of their culture. Duty, beauty, transformation. It's a packed metaphor that, despite their differences, their ideals are descended from the same symbol. The story is so fully devoted to discovery and learning, and it's reflected completely by the gameplay. It's one of the freshest ideas I've come across in recent gaming. Chants of Sennaar is wonderful. I'd recommend it to anyone. It's a different enough challenge that even seasoned gamers will likely get something out of it. And the ability to brute force symbols through persistent guesswork should keep inexperienced puzzlers from getting too stuck. I'd describe it as challenging but always fair. There aren't any implausible leaps of logic to deal with, and the difficulty felt fairly even throughout, as nailing down more words allows the player to understand more of their surroundings. It's a lively and bright experience. The gameplay is abstract but fresh, and even when the game is a bit frustrating, it never feels insurmountable. On the pain scale, I'd give this game a painless. I love it when a game genuinely surprises me like this, with gameplay that is innovative and unique and clearly well planned. Plus, it fits so cohesively into the story being told. To me, this seems like a future classic, the kind of game that people in 20 years will be making retrospective videos about. Well, that's all for my 13th review. Thanks for checking it out. See ya!